A new report has found that the UK is facing a new normal of medicine shortages, believed to be due to global supply issues.
The think tank, the Nuffield Trust, behind the study claims that the weakened trade links with the EU is likely to further weaken supply chains and threaten our ability to effectively respond to shortages.
Well, despite the NHS reportedly spending millions trying to mitigate the supply issues, medical professionals are calling the crisis a national health emergency.
Joining us now, good friend of the show, junior doctor, Dr. Basha.
Mukherjee.
Thank you very much indeed. And pharmacist Thorrun Govind. I hope I got the right, Thorrun. Thank you very much indeed. Let's put this into specific layperson's terms, because when people will wake up, widespread medicine shortages. Genuinely? How concerned should people be?
We should be concerned because every day, as a pharmacist, we're seeing patients who we cannot provide the medications that they need. And it's hours that our teams are spending to try and get hold of medication. And it's also disrupting for patients. You're getting a routine of taking your medication, and then suddenly you turn up at the pharmacy and the pharmacy say, we can't get hold of it. And that is not because of us down at the pharmacy, because we're not making the drugs in the pharmacy, but down to the whole supply chain that is on top of the pharmacy system, where we are absolutely struggling. And these manufacturers are suggesting things like shortages of raw material, increase in prices, but we are hearing, as this report says, that Brexit has played a part in that. And the real reason for that is currently, before Brexit, we would be part of the European Medicines Agency for drugs approval. Now it's going to be in the UK where drugs are approved, and we're much slower at doing that.
Is it certain medications or is this widespread?
It is certain. It's quite a few. So ADHD medications, HRT has been going on for a while. It's frustrating because it is ongoing, and we know that patients are also going online to try and source medications from all over the place in unregulated internet sources because they are desperate.
And Dr. Basha, we know that a lot of this has, sadly, been caused by the impact of leaving the European Union. We know that we're not going to be rejoining any time soon. But what kind of things can be put in place so that these shortages don't get worse?
You know, I hear about the shortages and, of course, there's the impact of the pandemic and Brexit and everything else that's been happening around the world, really, which is impacting, as rightly commented by my colleague here. But at the same time, I do wonder how we are managing our funds within the NHS. I think it's quite archaic when we've had a million-odd population increase with immigration for us to still be holding on to the free prescriptions for certain groups when certain groups of patients are actually abusing the system and they're continuing to almost cajole their GPs to prescribe them over-the-counter medications. And over the years, millions have been spent by the NHS on prescriptions for over-the-counter medications. I wish that we didn't have to be the sort of kind of gatekeepers of these medications and essentially having to make that choice in our consultations, telling patients, oh, I'm sorry, we can't prescribe you that, and then having that argument with that patient and making that choice, making that judgmental choice of whether a patient should or should not be prescribed over-the-counter medications. I think that choice should be just taken out of our hands.
Is that not the job of a doctor, though?
Not be prescribed. We could save a lot of money, which we can put back into the NHS to help with problems like this.
I'm confused, Dr. Mukherjee. Is that not the job of a doctor to choose who does and doesn't get over-the-counter medication?
Well, think about it. If anybody could come and say, I'm sorry, I can't afford to pay 35p or 45p for paracetamol, and it's not my job as a GP to decide, I'm not sure if I should allow you to make that allowance for you, but then my next patient, I can't make that allowance for you. I think it puts a lot on us to judge on that basis. We don't have the means to check how much someone can or cannot afford. I do think, however, just to bring Thorrun in there. Your response to that?
This is a separate issue. This is a case of getting the actual drugs into the pharmacy to the patients. There's no point arguing over whether patients should or shouldn't have prescriptions if we can't get the actual drugs into the country. We know that because of post-Brexit red tape, some firms are not supplying drugs to the UK because it's more profitable for them to be heading abroad and into the EU, where they've got access to a larger market. It's not attractive for manufacturers to be sending drugs here compared to the EU. And the other problem that we've got is we don't manufacture drugs here like we used to. There isn't the grassroots manufacturing. So if the government really cared about this, and it's not Rishi Sunak who's sat in the pharmacy explaining to patients why they can't get hold of their medication, it's people like me, then the government needs to urgently decide how they're going to tackle this. They need to get the approval of drugs going much quicker with the MHRA. MHRA is the regulator for the drugs in this country, as opposed to EMA, which is the European Medicines Agency.
Nothing, and we haven't got much time. Can I just jump in very quickly to both of you? Why don't we just make more drugs in this damn country and make it more successful that way? Quickly, Dr. Basha, thoughts?
I mean, 100%. And that is where I'm saying that, you know, ultimately there are shortages, of course, because of the impact on all over the world. But equally, I don't think we're managing our funds very well. And those funds could be reinvested into the NHS, into the pharmaceutical industry to help these problems so that we can procure more drugs in future, so that we don't come into this shortfall going forward.
Do you think we should manufacture more in our country before we get into a debate about Brexit and whatever? That's done. That ship has sailed. Do you not think it would be more successful for the business if we made drugs within the United Kingdom?
It would be much more sensible, but also drug development is not easy. It takes years for drug development. So this is not an easy process in the first place.
Should have thought about that. Interesting, though.
What, before leaving the EU?
Well, I'm not getting into that with you. People voted.
Yeah, no, I completely accept that the people voted. However, and as I said at the beginning of the programme, we're not going into the EU anytime soon, but we have to look forward and look at having deals or having arrangements with other countries who can help us to make sure that people are getting the medications that they so desperately need.
There will also be the argument always, and it's probably not the best argument now, given the recession that's in this country, that one of the reasons that people wanted to leave was to prove that this country was good enough to stand on its own 2 feet and do its own good thing. And I would have thought the planning for those drugs, you're right, should have been years ago. Should have been. There's many things that should have been talked about years ago, like the failing National Health Service. We need to get a different population. Listen, could talk forever. Thank you very much indeed.